Alright, that's good. Welcome to, what is this, 5th meeting, I think? No, 4th. We're going to start on Chapter 2, but first I just want to do a quick recap on the end of Chapter 1. And I gotta go shut up my dog. I wouldn't shoot Balboa Jr.
We can't shoot our mascot.
Alright, jokes aside, recapping the end of Chapter 1. I'm certain now that I figured it out. How the transition fully works out, because the last time it was still ambiguous to me what fully was happening. So the second interpretation, which I gave you guys, which was about the vanishing of the vanishing, is not in contradiction to the first. As a matter of fact, it is what explains the first interpretation about the transition into being a nothing. And the explanation is actually stupidly simple, but it's one of those things in which you have to read the text in a certain way, because obviously, the whole problem of interpretations is you don't know where the emphasis lies. So unless you put the right emphasis in the right places, it doesn't fully make sense. So when Hegel says that the vanishing of ceasing and coming to be is the vanishing of becoming, that's pretty much the key right there. And the key is that their vanishing is the vanishing of becoming. And one has to take that literally in that order, in which ceasing to be and coming to be as vanishings are the vanishing of becoming. That is, their function is to vanish becoming, not themselves. So remember how the being and nothing were unities in these moments of ceasing to be and coming to be. As these moments, they then vanish becoming, and they remain as this unity of being and nothing. That's why there is no collapse back into becoming. So ceasing to be, coming to be, vanish becoming. What is the vanishing of becoming? Well, being and nothing. It's being and nothing which vanish becoming. So you end up with both of them at the same time in immediate unity, and that is where we begin with Chapter 2. Alright, existence. Existence is determinate being. Its determinateness is existent determinateness, quality. Through its quality, something is opposed to an other. It is alterable and finite, negatively determined not only towards an other, but absolutely within it. This negation in it, in contrast at first with the finite something, is the infinite. The abstract opposition in which these determinations appear resolves itself into oppositionless infinity, into being for itself. The treatment of existence is therefore in three divisions. A. Existence as such. B. Something and other, finitude. C. Qualitative infinity. Alright, so that was a summary of what we're going to see. A. Existence as such. Well, capital A. In existence, As such, its determinateness is first to be distinguished as quality. The latter, however, is to be taken in both the two determinations of existence as reality and negation. In these determinacies, however, existence is equally reflected into itself, and as so reflected, it is posited as c something inexistent. So those are the moments of existence as such. First moment, existence in general. Existence proceeds from becoming. It is a simple oneness of being and nothing. On account of this simplicity, it has the form of an immediate. Its mediation, the becoming, lies behind it. It has sublated itself, and existence therefore appears as first from which as a first from which the forward move is made. It is at first in the one-sided determination of being. The other determination which it contains, nothing, will likewise come up in it in contrast to the first. So the becoming of becoming is existence, which is otherwise called determinate being. I'm going to use both terms because I think depending on where we are, it's sometimes useful to use one term or the other to showcase a certain relation going on. But existence is determinate being. Same thing. So on account of the simplicity as a form of immediate, that is, the being of the unity of being and nothing is itself not mediated by anything. It is the unity, full stop. And it first appears to us as just this immediate unity, so it is this immediate unity. The moment of nothing, its negation, is still only in itself. Well, but it will come up explicitly. So it is not mere being but existence, or Dasein in German. According to its German etymology, it is being, sein, in a certain place, da. But the representation of space does not belong here. As it follows upon becoming, existence is in general being with a non-being, so that this non-being is taken up into simple unity with being. Non-being thus taken up into being, with the result that the concrete whole is in the form of being, of immediacy, constitutes determinateness as such. So determinateness is negated being, being with a non-being taken up into it. Yeah, this Dasein is completely unrelated to Heidegger's. Heidegger's Dasein is hardly related to the regular uses of Dasein.
No, it's still being there.
Oh yeah, but its meaning is of the being of the subject.
Yeah.
It's not the being there of anything. Whereas this Dasein is literally just going to be the being of anything. So the unity of being and nothing, which is itself a unity, is existence, is determinateness. The whole is likewise in the form of determinateness of being. Since in becoming, being has likewise shown itself to be only a moment, something sublated, negatively determined. It is such, however, for us in our reflection, not yet as posited in it. So notice that he makes a differentiation between the elements of the whole and the whole itself, in which the elements in the whole are determinateness, and the whole itself is also a determinateness. What is posited, however, is the determinateness as such of existence, as is also expressed by the da, or there, of the Dasein. The two are always to be clearly distinguished. Only that which is posited in a concept belongs in the course of the elaboration of the latter to its content. Any determinateness not yet posited in the concept itself belongs instead to our reflection, whether this reflection is directed to the nature of the concept itself or is a matter of external comparison. So that the whole is a determinateness is something we notice about it. It's not something the concept itself from within tells us about itself. So it doesn't seem important from the beginning, but once you start noticing how dialectics work, it is important to notice what is reflected dialectic and what is an immanent dialectic. Because a reflected dialectic is still something that is external to what is going on. You know, for example, the whole issue of the transitions of being and nothing at the beginning were partially reflected, in which nothing could only happen based upon a reflection. Nothing itself would not tell you to go back to being. You have to stand back and notice the form of nothing and then go, it goes back to being. You know, it's a contradiction. So that is only to point out that what is going on here, these sort of comments are doing something which the dialectic, which is famous, or in which Hegel wants to show you, is not yet itself in full play. It can't be in full play. There's still external circumstances that we have to overcome. And yet we can't get rid of these external considerations. We have to make these external reflections. It's a necessary moment, it's a necessary step. So continuing, any determinateness not yet posited in the concept itself belongs instead to our reflection, whether this reflection is directed to the nature of the concept itself or is a matter of external comparison. To remark on a determinateness of this last kind can only be for the clarification or anticipation of the whole that will transpire in the course of the development itself. That the whole, the unity of being and nothing, is in the one-sided determinateness of being is an external reflection. But in negation, in something and other, and so forth, it will become posited. So the standing back and seeing, this is a unity itself, is a reflection. From within, you only see that you have being and nothing together. A being with a non-being taken up into it. It was necessary here to call attention to the distinction just given. But to comment on all that reflection can allow itself to give an account of it would lead to a long-winded anticipation of what must transpire in the fact itself, although such a reflection may serve to facilitate a general overview, and thus facilitate understanding. They also bring the disadvantage of being seen as unjustified assertions, unjustified grounds and foundations of what is to follow. They should be taken for no more than what they are supposed to be, and should be distinguished from what constitutes a moment in the advance of the fact itself. Existence corresponds to being in the preceding sphere, but being is the indeterminate. There are no determinations that therefore transpire in it, but existence is determinate being, something concrete. Consequently, several determinations, several distinct relations of its moments immediately emerge in it. All right, that section more or less clear? So basically, the core thing you definitely need to get from that section is
Quality
determinate
adheres on
is
existence.
well, not yet. We're gonna go
Well,
into that.
okay, go.
It's the one thing you need to take from that section is determinateness is being with a non-being, which is basically this side-by-sideness of being and nothing together at the after becoming. The whole remark about well, this in itself is a unity which has being is, as Hegel says, an external remark that kind of helps you see what's coming up, but is itself unwarranted there. So B, quality. On account of the immediacy with which being and nothing are one in existence, neither oversteps the other. To the extent that existence is existent, to the extent that it is non-being, it is determined. Being is not the universal, determinateness not the particular. So no differences between universals and particulars are warranted here. Determinateness has yet to detach itself from being, nor will it ever detach itself from it, since the now underlying truth is the unity of non-being with it. All further determinations will transpire on this basis, but the connection which determinateness now has with being is one of the immediate unity of the two, so that as yet no differentiation between the two is posited. So notice that determinate being, existence. What is the difference between determinateness, that is, and being that is determinate? Because by making the distinction determinate being, you're making two determinations. Both of them are determinate beings. The determinacy itself, determinateness, is being, and the being itself is determinate. So that's the point about, but the connection which determinateness now has with being is one of the immediate unity of the two, so that as yet no differentiation between the two is posited. It's like being and nothing, where we were wondering, wait, what's the difference? All right, is that clear to you guys? All right, continuing. Determinateness, thus isolated by itself as existent determinateness, is quality. Something totally simple, immediate. Determinateness in general is the more universal, which, further determined, can be something quantitative as well. On such account of this simplicity, there is nothing further to say about quality as such. Here, I think it helps to translate these complex terms back into their simplicity, to their simple parts, which is basically, remember, these are unities of being and nothing, negated being, being with a non-being, I'm taking into it. So existence is both a general determinateness, and determinateness is also an existence. So you could phrase this as determinateness, that quality is either existent existence or determinate determinateness. And you notice here how this is going to start getting complex in a very different way, which being and nothing and becoming aren't the same. The relations between the terms in this section start to become reflections of each other, self-repulsions of the same thing, doubling back on itself. Yeah, so quality does not exist without general existence, because it is existent existence. It does not exist without determinateness, because it is determinate determinateness. So these are two actual levels, that come out of each other. And one of the things I could say about this is, going back to the name determinate being. What is the determinateness? If both of them are being and both of them are existent, both of them are determinateness. Determinate being, determinate determinateness. Quality is the determinateness of the first determinateness. Does it make sense? It is the determinateness of determinate being.
No, sorry, you lost me there.
Alright, time to pull up the diagrams. It's a good thing I actually made those. I still think, because I think those are still more or less correct. Though, just like the being becoming thing, I'll probably end up changing them a bit. It's like diagramming and like writing things out helps so much with these chapters. I think it's a necessity, because things start getting very convoluted, and the diagram form helps you keep some sort of spatial awareness in your mind of like how these terms kind of relate to each other.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late.
Oh boy, you missed the last about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not so bad.
Alright, so I linked an image. Open it and look at it. And let me re-explain this again. Okay, you guys looking at it?
Yep.
Wait, where's the link?
It's in hellos. Here, I posted it in the ROG channel. Here's in the Science of Logic channel now.
Okay, great, I see it.
Okay, so right now we're literally on the first movement. So the first movement is from existence to quality. So remember how at the end of becoming becomes, it sublates itself into existence, the unity of being and nothing. Existence begins with that unity. Determinateness is defined as being with a non-being, being with non-being taken up with it, or you can phrase this as negated being. So that is what determinateness is. Another term used in other translations for existence was determinate being. which is more of a mouthful, but sometimes more helpful than existence for certain disambiguations. So quality is a movement from existence, which is determinate being. And this movement comes from the fact that determinacy, the determinacy that is determinate in determinate being, is itself a being, and being is itself determinate. So that's where you get this relational reflective jump, which gets you to quality, which is existent existence, or determinate determinacy, or the determinate being of determinate being. But you notice how it is a reflective unity. And if you look at the diagram, the arrow kind of points at itself, that quality is this reflection which relates back to existence. I mean, does that make more sense?
I'm still thinking.
Okay, maybe this elaboration of the source probably may help as well. So we get determinate being out of first having the concept of being, and then adding the qualification of negation. So the being is determined. It's something that is a linguistic construction. You need to literally think about it in the very form of the words, such that you notice that you make a distinction between being and its determinacy. Yet you have to notice that by making that distinction, you have already determined being. So that's how you get this reflection. By determining one thing, you immediately determine the other. So you thought you had indeterminate being, and now you're going to determine it. The moment you make this distinction between being and its determinacy, you have made both a determinate being. So the determinacy is, and the being, by being split from this determinacy, is itself now determined. So you get, so both of them are determinacies. Both of them are determinate beings. So you get quality as this immediately reflected unity. It's existent existence.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's existent existence, determinate determinacy, determinate being of determinate being. But you notice how the moment you have determinacy, it splits. It mirrors. You can't stop it. Yes, it does get crazy, which is... And we're coming up to I literally got stuck in the next page for about 5 days, but it's mainly because of a bad translation. But in this chapter, you need to be making diagrams. You need to be keeping track of which reflections are going on and which relate to each other and how they relate to each other. So, alright, the first reflection clear to you guys? Yes. So, to reiterate, the structure of self, repulsion, and reflection is immanent, or I don't know, Hyperion knows words. Is endemic would that be a right word for this? Like endemic to the concept.
Yeah, endemic.
Yeah. So this is something that just the moment you made a determinacy, you've made a reflection of determinacies. And so that is quality. Continuing on. We're on page 85 of the PDF, by the way. Alright, continuing. Existence, however, in which nothing and being are equally contained, is itself the measure of the one-sidedness of quality as an only immediate or existent determinateness. Quality is equally to be posited in the determination of nothing, and the result is that the immediate or existent determinateness is posited as distinct, reflected, and the nothing as thus the determinate element of determinateness will equally be something reflected, a negation. Quality in the distinct value of existent is reality when affected by a negating. It is negation in general, still a quality but one that counts as a lack and is further determined as limit, restriction. So here the moment of quality itself makes a distinction in which you have the positive qualitative moment and the negative qualitative moment, in which to make a determinacy of determinacy, you have made a split between the being of a determinacy or the lack of a determinacy, the non-being of it. That one's kind of dense, so if you need elaborations, tell me.
Yeah, if you can.
Alright, so let's more slowly reread this. Existence, however, in which nothing and being are equally contained, is itself the measure of the one-sidedness of quality as an only immediate or existent determinateness. Notice that. Existent determinateness. That is quality in the mode of being, that is the positive moment. But if there is an existent determinateness, then there must then be a reflection. So the moments of quality, which is positive quality and negative quality, are necessary inner reflections because of the very determinacy of quality. You must determine quality. Quality must automatically either be a positive assertion or a negation because it exists. So the moments of quality as reality. Well, actually, this will be continued right here. Let me just keep reading this. Both are in existence, but in reality, as quality with the accent on being and existent, that is, determinateness, and hence also negation is concealed. Reality only has, therefore, the value of something positive from which negating, restriction, lack are excluded. Negation, for its part, taken as mere lack, would be what nothing is, but it is an existence, a quality, or determined with a non-being. So the way I kind of would put it this way is that these two moments of quality are something you can think about in this way, that they are the determinateness of the determinateness. It's three levels of reflection going on. First you have existence in general, the being that is determined, then you have the determinateness, which is reflected off that, then you have a further reflection within the determinateness itself, which determines that determinateness, which is quality. It's the moments of quality. Yeah, it's not easy. Okay, let's backtrack a bit and let's see if we can put it another way. So backtracking back to the beginning of a description of quality. Existence, however, in which nothing and being are equally contained, is itself the measure of the one-sidedness of quality as an only immediate or existent determinateness. So existence, or determinate being, in which nothing and being are equally contained, is itself the measure of the one-sidedness of quality as only immediate or existent determinateness. So, okay, with quality we have determined the determinacy, right? Correct? Determinate determinacy. It's the determinateness of the being. Following so far? Okay. Because determinateness is a unity of being and nothing, the moment you have made this split of determinacy, you have determined the determinacy, which is determinate being, you have made it determinate, immediately a reflection has to happen. You cannot have a determinate being without something opposing it, without it negating something. It has to be negated, but what is negating it? So the positive moment in which you say, okay, the being is existence, qualitative being, you've made a positive assertion, but in order to make that positive assertion, you must make the negative assertion, which is the negative moment of quality. Make sense?
Like in perceiving in the phenom.
So to put it another way, a positive qualitative assertion must implicitly carry a negative assertion as well. So the positive moment we will call reality, the negative moment we will call negation. Y'all best be taking notes. This is some heady. This is dense stuff. Like, this is way denser than than the first chapter. So I mean, basically the explanation has to be: anytime you have a determinacy, you must have a reflection. Anytime a positive assertion is made in determinacy, it must be accompanied by a negative determinacy. So if you keep that in mind, all the other later reflections shall be easier for you. So anytime we make a determinacy, expect a negative determinacy to come right after it. It has to. It's implied in the very notion of determinacy, a being with a non-being. And all right, we have made it to the first remark. All right, so just to make sure you guys get it, why? This is a question, and at least two of you better answer this in the text chat or in voice. Why is it that we get the reflections, and why are they necessary?
Because determination is the unity between being and non-being. Then if we determinate the determination, which is at the same time existence, because non-being is implied, then there has to be a negative uh, determination after we try to determine it externally. There's a kind of internal determination implied in the moment we try to determine it externally.
Yeah, that's it. So every time determinacy comes up, expect a reflection. All right. Do you think you can fix your modem? Yeah. You got that right, Joshua. Ch.2. Oh, he's not here. All right, give me a minute to grab something. All right. Did you have a question, Ivan, or was that just a comment? All right. All right. Well, I mean, it shouldn't take you that long. Just we are on page 85.
Yeah, I was just like reading previous paragraphs. So.
Yeah, all right. So, starting on the remark. Reality may seem to be an ambiguous word, since it is used in different, even opposite determinations. In philosophical usage, for instance, one speaks of mere empirical reality, as of a worthless being. But when it is said of thoughts, concepts, theories, that they have no reality, this means that there is no actuality in them. Of the idea of a Platonic republic, for instance, it is said that it might well be true in itself or in its concept. Here the idea is not denied its value and is even allowed room alongside reality. However, as against the so-called mere ideas, the mere concepts, the real counts as alone true. The sense in which external existence is made the criterion of the truth of a content is, for its part, just as one-sided as when the idea, the essence, or even inner feeling is represented as indifferent to external existence, and is even held to be all the more estimable the more remote it is from reality. So basically just a comment of how muddled our use of words is, It's like we use reality to mean actuality, we use it to mean existence, we use it to mean external nature, empirical existence, which is one of the issues of philosophy. Like you notice that our lexicon is jumbled, even for modern philosophers. You notice this jumble happening. Yeah, go ahead and say what you're going to say, Sorath.
Essence too. I think for Spinoza it was kind of like essence.
So one of the attacks people can usually make is like, well, how do you know that your definition is true? And I think Hegel's answer will easily be, it's like, well, because I've derived it. I started with no presuppositions. I built up to it. This is the structure that I think fits this term best. It is the objective definition. Whether you accept it or not is basically becomes a whole argument of semantics of like, you don't want that specific symbol of string of symbols, a word, to be used with that specific content. Well, that's no one's problem but the reader who's against that. One user comments, well, Hegel doesn't really use definitions from what I can tell. He just has concepts and uses the best fitting word for it. What word as commonly used best fits it? Yeah, and the concepts are nothing but these relational structures of thought. But it definitely needs to be noted that obviously he doesn't just use any name for the structures. He takes words that already exist that seem to already imply something like what the structure he's arrived at.
Can you maybe tell difference in this remark from empirical reality and actuality?
Oh, God, I think I had a notion of actuality earlier, like the last few couple times, but it's not coming to mind right now. Because there's the relations between actuality and possibility. So the difference between that the real is the actual, not the possible. So
Yeah, but
those meanings go together. Empirical reality is actual, as opposed to possible. It is actually it does exist in the way that empirical existence, as opposed to simply in your mind.
yeah, because it seems that those two concepts seem pretty much the same.
Yeah, in the regular understanding, like these things are confused. They're used interchangeably as if they mean the same thing. And for Hegel, these will not mean the same things, which is why he's pointing this out. He's saying, normally people just use this jumble of words to mean like these various things, but this specific word means specifically this kind of structure for me. So continuing, in connection with the term reality, mention must be made of the former metaphysical concept of God that was once made the foundation of the so-called ontological proof of God's existence. God was defined as the sum total of all realities, and of this sum total it was said that it contained no contradiction within, that none of the realities cancelled any other, for a reality is to be taken only as a perfection, as something affirmative, that contains no negation. Consequently, as it was said, the realities are not in opposition and do not contradict one another. So in relation to what we just read, this is like affirming only a positive determinacy, that determinacy is only being without negation. Of course, we should already understand by the process we've undergone that this is crazy. It's not possible. You cannot have an affirmation without having a negation in it, because otherwise you fall into pure being, which is indeterminate and a whole bunch of nothing. Continuing, on this concept of reality, the assumption is that the latter still remains after all negation has been thought away. However, to do this is to remove all determinateness from reality. Reality is quality, existence. It therefore contains the moment of the negative and is a determinate being that it is only through it. Taken in the so-called eminent sense, or as infinite in the ordinary meaning of the word, as we are said we should, reality is expanded into indeterminateness and loses its meaning. So an infinite quality which is all encompassing is not a quality at all. God's goodness is supposed to be such not in the ordinary sense, but eminently. It is not different from justice, but is rather tempered by it, an expression of mediation of Leibnizian origin. Just as contrariwise justice is tempered by goodness, and so neither is goodness goodness any longer, nor justice justice. Power should be tempered by wisdom, but it is then no longer power as such, for it is subject to wisdom. Wisdom should be expanded into power, but then it vanishes as the end and measure setting wisdom. The true concept of the infinite and of its absolute unity that will later emerge is not to be understood as a tempering, a mutual restricting or blending, a superficial nebulous connection that can only satisfy mindless representation. When reality, taken in the sense of a determinate quality as in the said definition of God, is made to transgress its determinateness, it ceases to be reality. It becomes abstract being. God as the pure reality in all realities, or as the sum total of all realities, is the same empty absolute, void of determination and content, in which all is one. So once again, pure being, pure positivity is nothing. Pure nothing, pure negativity is also nothing. If, on the contrary, reality is taken in its determinateness, then, since it essentially contains the moment of the negative, yes, do you have something to say?
No, I just have caps lock as the speech button. Sorry, man.
Yeah, all right. Alright, continuing. If, on the contrary, reality is taken in its determinateness, then, since it essentially contains the moment of the negative, the sum total of all realities becomes just as much a sum total of all negations, the sum total of all contradictions, a sort of first absolute power in which everything determinate is absorbed. However, since reality only exists insofar as it still has over against it something which it has not sublated, by being thought expanded in this way into an accomplished power void of restrictions, it becomes the abstract nothing. The said reality in everything real, the being in all existence that should express the concept of God, is nothing else than abstract being, the same nothing. So that one's a bit hard to parse. So, if Leibniz describes God as, just pure realities with no negations, but if we accept the negations, we take determinacy as a standing point, and we say that, God is just the sum total of all determinacies, which is equally realities and equal negations, you end up with a whole bunch of nothing. And it seems this is explained by this later half, which says, however, since reality only exists insofar as it still has over against it something which it has not sublated, by being thought expanded this way into an accomplished power void of restrictions, it becomes the abstract nothing. So if you just merely say, well, God is just a sum totality of all determinacies, you've actually not made any distinction whatsoever. God is nothing more than these determinacies in total, but that is no determination at all. I don't know. You guys agree with that interpretation? You think that makes sense?
Kinda. I'm not acquainted with Leibniz. But I have the impression that its rational ontological system is kinda the contrary to Spinoza. Like here we have infinite little things which are called the monads. So instead of one absolute, one only substance. So I guess it makes sense. It's only a bunch of non-beings.
Mhm. Continuing, that determinateness is negation posited as affirmative is Spinoza's proposition. Omnis determinatio est negatio, a proposition of infinite importance. Only negation. Only negation. Only negation as such is formless abstraction. However, speculative philosophy must not be accused of taking negation or nothing as an ultimate. Negation is as little an ultimate for it as reality is for its truth. For it, the truth. The unity of Spinoza's substance, or that there is only one substance, is the necessary consequence of this proposition, that determinateness is negation. Spinoza had of necessity to posit thought and a being, or extension, the two determinations, namely, which he had before him, as one in this unity, for as determinate realities the two are negations whose infinity is their unity, according to Spinoza's definition, about which more later on, the infinity of something is its affirmation. He therefore conceived them as attributes, that is, such as do not have a particular subsistence as being in and for itself, but only are as sublated as moments, or rather, since substance is the total void of internal determinateness, they are not even moments. The attributes, like the modes, are distinctions made by an external understanding. Also, the substantiality of individuals cannot hold its own before that substance. The individual refers to itself by setting limits to every other, but these limits are therefore also the limits of its self. They are references to the other. The individual's existence is not in the individual. True, the individual is more than just restrictions on all sides, but this more belongs to another sphere, that of the concept. In the metaphysics of being, the individual is an absolute determinate something, and against this something, against this finite that would be in and for itself as such, determinateness asserts itself essentially as negation, dragging it into the same negative movement of the understanding that makes everything vanish into the abstract unity of substance. Oh, that was a bit dense.
Yeah, the point about that when he says that attributes and that they are not even moments, that has to do with that for Spinoza. Negation is imperfection. No, when it has negation, it means that it has a lower level of reality. That is why the only thing that is real or affirmation, which is infinity, which is the only thing that is real. You could say like Hegel says here, distinction that those are distinctions made by an external understanding when he talks about attributes and modes. Yeah, that was the point of Spinoza, that it was a confusion of our mind. Particular things were a confusion of our mind because our mind was imperfect. It it was not capable of understanding substance, which is the only true reality. That was the point.
Thank you for that. It was interesting. On the thing about moments, the reason he says like they can't even be moments is because moments here is talking about his own logic, Hegel's logic, in which a moment is an imminent moment of a concept. So the attributes cannot be moments in the substance, because from substance we cannot derive attributes. We take them as given and we speak of them as given. But from the concept of substance, we cannot derive directly the attributes. That's why he says they are also given by an external understanding. As for Ivan comments, substance as the positive moment, negation and limitation of substance is the negative moment, the attributes. Yeah, I'd say that's seems like a fair formalism. And yeah, I do notice what you were saying, Soros, when she says here, according to Spinoza's definition, about which more later on, the infinity of something is its affirmation. So the highest affirmation, the highest reality would be substance, which is not negated.
Yeah, and that leads us to the first part where we were talking about what is about what understands this or that tradition about the word reality. For Spinoza, clearly reality was uh, totally contrary to the empirical way of understanding reality. For him, reality was just essence. That is clear when when he talks about man in a totally different way to that of which Hobbes talks about man. Like for Hobbes, man is a wolf. For man, no. For Spinoza, no. Man is God for man. Why? Because for Spinoza, man is not what is out there that you are seeing. No, man the is the complete man, the rational man, which is like at the end the totality of nature. That it is there in nature, but we cannot see it because we are imperfect, we are finite. But that doesn't mean for him that man, the real man, is not there. It's just that its essence, which corresponds to its reality, uh, it's not capable for the finite, imperfect, incomplete man to perceive.
All right. Continuing on. Negation stands immediately over against reality. Further on, in the sphere proper to reflected determinations, it will be the opposite to the positive, which is reality reflecting upon negation, the reality in which the negative, still hiding in reality as such, shines forth. That will be something that comes in the logic of essence. Quality, specifically, is a property only when, in an external connection, it manifests itself as an immanent determination. By properties of herbs, for instance, we understand determinations which are not just proper to a something, but are such that in virtue of them the something holds its own while referring to others and will not give in to the alien influences posited in it by them. On the contrary, it imposes its own determinations in the other, though it does not keep it at a distance. On the other hand, more stable determinacies, such as figure or shape, are not called properties, nor even qualities, for they are thought of as alterable and therefore as not identical with being. So, quality in the form of property is a sort of external connection that doesn't properly apply. Quality itself is not directly property. What people would call properties, Hegel will call determinations later on. And determinations are exactly what he says, immanent determinations. They are qualities that are inherent to the thing itself. They are its own positive existence. The thing cannot be what it is without them. So it is by properties as immanent determinations, immanent qualities, that things hold their own while referring to others. He says, by properties of herbs, for instance, we understand determinations, that is, inner qualities, which are not just proper to a something, but are such that in virtue of them the something holds its own while referring to others and will not give in to the influences, yada yada yada. He says, on the other hand, more stable determinacies such as figure or shape are not called properties, nor even qualities, for they are thought as alterable and therefore is not identical with being, but they are actually related to the immanent determinations, to properties, as what Hegel will call constitution, which is external qualities. But that's going to be explained in the coming section. To finish this off, he says, Qualierung or Inqualierung are the Qualierung or Inqualierung, an expression of Jakob Böhme's profound but also profoundly turbid philosophy, signifies the movement within a quality, sourness, bitterness, fieriness, etc., inasmuch as in its negative nature, in its qual or torment, the quality posits itself, securing itself from another. It signifies in general the internal unrest of quality by which it produces and preserves itself only in conflict. All right. Do you guys want to keep going and like make it half part way through something, or do you want to leave it here and just leave something for the next time so we can just go at it fresh? Because this is going to get back into the reflective mode in which like we're gonna have, I think, somewhere like about 8 reflections. All right. So we'll leave it here for next time. Thanks for showing up. Definitely read it over. Think about it some more. Make sure it sticks, because you will need to remember all the things that have gone before in order for the next section to fully keep making sense.
Thank you.